speakers in just a minute. Before I do so, I would like to share my screen and present some opening slides. First of all, I would like to acknowledge the sponsorship this evening of Eloise Haller. Thank you so much, Eloise, for giving in support of student scholarships. And if you've never joined us before, this is Husky Bites. This is a Monday evening webinar. This is season 3, so it's spring season. And in Husky Bites, we feature different speakers. And this evening, we're featuring mechanical engineering professor Andrew Barnard, who is co-hosted with me with Travis White. If anyone would ever like to reach me, my email is shown there. I'm the Dean of Engineering, Dean of the College of Engineering. My name's Janet Callahan, and my email is just callahan@mtu.edu. I want to again acknowledge with grateful heart the support of Michael and Karen Gregory, who have matched up to $25,000, and you can see we have a long way to go to meet that matching gift. So if anyone else would like to sponsor a Husky Bites or to just give to Michigan Tech, to the annual fund scholarships, just please drop a quick email to engineering@mtu.edu if you would like your gift acknowledged. Well, and so I mentioned it's World Water Day, and we actually have a bunch of different activities surrounding World Water Day. And so we're kicking it off with this evening's Husky Bites. Tomorrow we have a youth speaker, Braden Butterfield, who will be speaking March 23rd. And to learn more about this, just go to mtu.edu/Great Lakes/about/world-water-day. And you can learn more about how to tune into any of these things. But there's just a whole bunch of really good activities, including Art Night with local art educator and artist Melissa Hronken, who will be reading with a reading of We Are Water Protectors by Carol Lindstrom. And then there'll be a panel on March 24th. Welcome again, K-12 educators, and make sure that we know you're here if you're an educator and if you want to get a sketch. And if you don't know what a sketch is, don't worry about it. But if you do know what a sketch is and you want to get credit for it, do drop an email to engineering@mtu.edu. Thank you so much for joining us. And of course, you all know these are also streamed on Facebook Live. You can just search for Michigan Tech's College of Engineering, and you can listen to a Husky Bites that way as well. So what's left? The season's winding down. We've got 4 left. We will be learning from Tim Schultz, who is a faculty member in the Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering, and who is an amazing fisherman. We'll be learning the anatomy of a fishing season with co-host Dean Will Cantrell, who's Dean of the Graduate School, and he's also a physics professor and a fisherman. And then after that, we'll be learning from Adam Meckler, who is actually the director of our jazz band, as well as being a faculty member. He's going to be talking about looking at the new music economy. Then we're going to hear from students in the wireless communication enterprise with co-host Kit Chisky. And then this is the last one of the season because we wanted it to be as close to May as possible when the bird migration happens, but we will be learning about multicolored migratory birds, and that will be with Forest Resources and Environmental Sciences faculty member Jared Wolf. I did want to make sure anybody who wants to register for summer youth programs, registration is now open. And so this is an awesome place to come for a summer youth program. And we will be in person. So register your grandson or granddaughter or son or daughter or yourself if you would like, ask your parents if you can come to a summer youth program. All right, and I've already stated this, but I just wanted you to know this is our next speaker. All right, and so I'm going to stop sharing, and Andrew, you can go ahead and start sharing while I introduce our co-host, right? Travis White.
I can do that.
Yeah, you should be able to share. So it is my pleasure this evening to introduce my co-host, Travis White. Travis is a research engineer and a relief captain And you're going to have to explain what that means. Travis is also an avid fisherman. He charters fishing. He's an entrepreneur. His company is ProNav Marine, and he's an expert on marine autonomy and GPS for fishing boats. Very talented person. And you are also an alumnus of Michigan Tech, is that right?
That's right.
And that class of 2011?
That's right.
And mechanical engineering. And so an interesting thing about Travis is he has over 10,000 hours captaining on the Great Lakes. And so Travis, I probably haven't said enough about you, but if you want to add a few more details, please feel free to do so, and then take it from here and introduce Andrew.
All right. Well, thank you, Dean Callahan. That was a great introduction. I'm very honored to be speaking tonight with all of you and on behalf of World Water Week. And I'm also pleased to introduce Dr. Andrew Barnard, who is the director of the Great Lakes Research Center. He's also an MTU alumni and associate professor in the Department of Mechanical Engineering and Engineering Mechanics. And he specializes in acoustics, vibration, and noise control engineering. So I think in his slides, you'll hear some interesting examples of how that relates to some of the science we're doing that helps us understand and protect the Great Lakes. So I'll turn it over to Andrew.
All right, thanks, Travis. So before I start, I want to echo Janet's comments that today is actually World Water Day, and Michigan Tech celebrates World Water Day over the course of a week. So we're celebrating from March 18th to the 24th. And so there's still tonight and tomorrow and Wednesday events left. So the United Nations theme this year is valuing water. Travis and I are going to talk a lot tonight about social and economic values. But of course, we do a lot of things with cultural and environmental perspectives as well, which are equally as important. So you can go to our website, which Janet gave earlier, or the easier way to find us is just Google 2021 MTU World Water Day, and it'll be the first thing that comes up in your Google search. So next slide. Janet stole my next slide, which is great because it gives me a little more time to talk about some of the details of our work. I do want to go back, Travis. I just want to highlight one thing there. For those of you with kids that have been cooped up at home, the event tomorrow night has some art and movement. So might be a good thing for cooped up kids. In addition to reading We Are Water Protectors, there'll be a little bit of sea yoga and making peace crane mobiles. So kind of fun activity tomorrow night. All right, next slide. So Travis already introduced me. I'll tell you a little bit about my background and what I do at the Great Lakes Research Center. So I am an acoustical engineer, and I have degrees in undergraduate and master's degrees in mechanical engineering, and my PhD is in acoustics from Penn State. So I actually was a fourth-year mechanical engineering student here at Michigan Tech who didn't know what he wanted to do with the rest of his life, which is not that uncommon of a story, until I got an internship in noise control engineering with John Deere and learned that I really like working with sound because sound allowed me to couple my mathematics and physics-based education with something that I really enjoyed. So on the side, I was a musician. I sang in the concert choir here at Michigan Tech. When I was in high school, I played in the band. So it was really, really fun for me to figure out how I could couple that passion with the things I was good at technically. So went on and did that for both a master's and a PhD. And as Travis mentioned, my specialty is really noise control. And in terms of Great Lakes Research Center, I focus on underwater acoustics and noise control. So everything from sensing applications. So if I've got sensors in the water, how do I detect and classify things that are moving around in the water or on top of the water? Or lately, we've been looking at things that are moving around on top of an ice layer on top of water. And being at Michigan Tech is a great place to look at ice layers. We were just talking about before this, how the ice is just starting to go out. But we've had some really interesting work in that area. So it's really a pleasure to be the director of the Great Lakes Research Center and to bring my expertise in underwater acoustics to bear there. So what Travis and I are going to talk about is the technology that we're working on developing through our efforts at the Great Lakes Research Center and how that applies to this World Water Day theme of valuing water. Go ahead, Travis. So there's this thing out there called the blue economy. It's the new buzzword, especially in and around the Great Lakes and the coasts. Well, without really knowing it, I grew up in the blue economy. So as you know, around the Great Lakes, there's lots and lots of opportunities for tourism. I grew up in Door County, Wisconsin, and these are some shots of my grandparents' resort just south of Egg Harbor, Wisconsin. And I grew up cutting the lawn and fixing toilets and working on people's broken screen doors, all the fun things you do when you're helping out around a resort, not knowing at all that I was part of the blue economy. So the blue economy is economic drivers that need to be sustainable, that rely on the water. And sustainability is a really big part of the blue economy because we want this part of the economy to be sustainable forever. In a place like the shallows, if the water is polluted, people aren't coming back to that. So we need to protect that, not just for social, environmental, and other issues, which are extremely important, but also to preserve the economy in these areas. So a little bit of my background and how that sort of leads me into my water passions. Next slide. Oh, there we go. So the Great Lakes blue economy, some facts you may not know. 21% of the world's surface freshwater is in the Great Lakes. So if you think of all the fresh water in the world in terms of drops, 1 in 5 of those drops is in the Great Lakes, which is crazy to think about. That surface freshwater drives our economy in this area. If the Great Lakes states were their own country, they'd be the 3rd largest GDP in the world, behind only the US and China. So it's a huge economic driver. From tourism to shipping, water is absolutely vital for our economic engine. And keeping the sustainability of that water economy, that blue economy, is really, really important as we move further into the 21st century. So next slide, a little fun fact about the Great Lakes. So there should be a poll coming up here. Lake Superior is not only the largest freshwater lake in the world by surface area, but the deepest at how many feet? Anyone can guess? It's actually the 2nd deepest. I think we've got that fact wrong for some reason. I didn't read this close enough. Lake Baikal is the deepest in Russia.
Wow. I don't even know what to guess here. It seems like 650 feet would be already really, really deep.
It is really deep.
The answer is never A though, so. I don't know. All right, so
pretty good.
I don't see it. Oh, there's the pole.
Yeah,
Here we go.
so it's 1,333 feet, and that actually, is as of a few years ago. It's probably a little higher now. It might be like 1,334 or 1,335, because as the water levels have risen a little bit. But yeah, it's 400 meters deep for those of you that don't like feet. It is an extremely deep lake. That actually the deepest spot is just north, I'd say like northeast of Munising. There's kind of a big hole in a trench, but it's easy to get in over 1,000 feet of water almost anywhere out mid-lake. It's a really, really deep lake. Lots and lots of water. Okay. Oh, do I have to click share to share these results?
No. I think
Okay.
Sue takes care of all those things. And if it's in your field of view, you can just close out of it. If you're in the audience, just X out of the poll so it gets out of your field of view.
Got it. Okay. So a few projects that we're working on at the Great Lakes Research Center that deal with the blue economy and that deal particularly with acoustics, because that's my field of expertise. One is this summer, we're really excited to be working with USGS, the U.S. Geological Survey, that to look at how ship noise potentially affects Great Lake fish surveys. So fishing is, of course, a huge industry in the Great Lakes, a big economic driver, also very important for our tribal nations around the Great Lakes. And the USGS drives all those fish surveys every summer and provides data then to the federal government and to the states. And that's very important for local DNRs and for fish outlooks for fishing. Well, they do this with very large vessels and troll nets, and they actually count the fish they catch. And year over year, they can then predict how many fish are in the lakes by doing surveys throughout the lakes. But as you can imagine, these big ships make noise. And there's a looming question out there as to, does this noise change the count of the fish that we're trying to get by being present? So if there's any hunters in the crowd, when you hunt, everyone knows you try to be quiet, right? I grew up a hunter, I'm still a hunter. You're always quiet. So does it matter if the ship is making noise? Do fish scatter in advance and artificially skew your results? Well, what we're going to do this summer in combination with looking at acoustics of these large vessels is we're going to work with a third-party company called Sail Drone, which makes these autonomous wind-powered vessels, which you see on the screen here. And they're extremely quiet because they don't have a propeller like the large research ships do. And we're going to use downward-looking acoustic sensors to sense the fish instead of having large ships that would use troll nets. So this will be a really interesting study for us to learn if the way we've been doing fish studies has affected the fish count or not. And that'll help us to make better management decisions in the future. Next slide, Travis.
What's
Oh,
the
go ahead,
approximate size or length of that vessel?
Travis, do you know off the top of your head? I think
Yeah,
it's about, go ahead.
I think they're like right in that 10-foot range.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say 3 meters, so that's about it. They're pretty small.
It's pretty cool.
And
Yeah,
they
they're
can
really
get
neat.
really
Totally,
shallow.
totally wind powered.
Yeah.
And solar.
So there'll be 2 of those floating around the Great Lakes this summer. So if you happen to be out in Lake Michigan or Lake Huron and you see one of those, that's USGS is out there working with Sail Drone, and Michigan Tech is supporting that effort. Another thing we do that acoustics is very helpful with in terms of driving our blue economy and fish is we do a lot of freshwater ecosystem research. And one of the examples of that is up here in the Keweenaw at the Gay Stamp Sands. So the stamp sands pictured in the bottom left are historical mine waste that has drifted down the peninsula for a length of about 5 to 8 miles and created a large stamp sand deposit field. And it just so happens that stamp sand deposit field is now encroaching on one of the most vital whitefish spawning locations in all of Lake Superior called Buffalo Reef. So we're working with Keweenaw Bay Indian community and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and the EPA to monitor this and help the Army Corps figure out how to resolve this issue with dredging and other revetment over the next few years. You can see on the top picture here is a picture of our Ivor 3 autonomous vessel. This is an underwater autonomous vehicle that's outfitted with dual side scan sonar. That side scan sonar basically gives us an acoustic picture of the bottom of the lake. So when we fly this over the area of Buffalo Reef, we get a picture that's shown here in these sort of yellowish colors. And you can see in the middle of that picture, there's a black stripe. That black stripe is the path that the Ivor is flying. We can't see directly underneath it. We see out to the sides. That's why it's called side scan sonar. So there's a little blind spot underneath it. And then you can see sort of these striations. Those striations are the sand as it's deposited in a trough. And then off to the left side, you see a bunch of cobbles. So these are cobble style rocks. Those cobbles are where the whitefish spawn. So as that sand builds up, if it starts to cover up the cobble field, it provides less spawning area for the local whitefish population. So that's a huge issue to our fishing communities up here, which is a big economic driver in the upper Great Lakes. So we're trying to help through continually monitoring this and helping out the governmental agencies to work on cleaning up this issue over time. We're hoping that we're making progress in that area. So I think that's my last slide. I think I'm going to throw it over to Travis now. He's going to talk a little bit more about some of his fishing exploits.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, Andrew. That was some excellent information. So I think we've already heard a little bit about my introduction. So I think I'd like to just start out by talking a little bit about how I ended up where I am here at the Great Lakes Research Center. Similar to what Andrew described, sitting as a fourth-year engineering student in the meme on a warm fall day, this was in 2011. I heard the pounding and construction of the GLRC getting built. That entire last semester I was here, and I remember thinking to myself, boy, I wish that was built already so that I could be a part of it. I was kind of looking for an opportunity to see what some of the freshwater research would be at the center. So a couple years later, I had a job locally here as an engineer, which allowed me to stay in this area, which I'd fallen in love with as a student. And a friend of a friend of a friend mentioned that the Great Lakes Research Center may be looking for a relief captain for their research vessel, the Agassiz. And what that is, a relief captain is basically a backup. So when the other captain needs a day off, or if he's worked a full week and is unable to take another trip, that's basically a second captain that can help increase the capacity of our research fleet. So I was a quick hand in the air to sign up for that opportunity. And that really kind of allowed me to learn more about what some of the sciences and research going on Lake Superior were at that time. And then a few years after that, there was a position at the GLRC for a mechanical engineer, a research engineer. And I applied to that. And part of what drew me to that is that it pertained a lot to marine autonomy. And that was a growing area of interest of mine, given that overlaps a little bit with some of the work I've done with my company ProNav Marine, which is GPS controls for fishing boats. So I applied to that, and I was absolutely excited to get the position as a research engineer there. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about what some of that work has entailed since then. But first, my passion is truly being on and around the water. And fishing. So, one thing that growing up on the Great Lakes has really done is given me an appreciation of the freshwater environment that we're surrounded by. And I can totally see how it would be easy to take that for granted. But one thing that fishing has also done is allowed me to get on the water, as a hobby, recreationally, and also professionally. And then when I travel, I get to see other areas and learn about the marine life. So this has really helped frame my perspective on the value of fresh water. I make a small part of my living as a fishing guide, so there's a value there, but also seeing how important that whole ecosystem picture is and maintaining it the way it is so that these types of fish can grow, big and old, it's really important. So basically, my goal when I graduated from tech was to form a career around sort of what my passions were that I just identified. So as a mechanical engineer, we like to build things and design, equipment and solve problems. And looking at water as a topic, a very broad topic, there are many exciting applications for technologies to be applied to solve some of the challenges that we face in fresh water. And it's certainly a very broad, but in the background here is an image of a sailboat going around a giant yellow, what looks like a raft. And inside of that raft is a ProNav GPS unit that's holding that, basically it's a buoy in position during the middle of a sail race. And basically my company is partnered with another Michigan Tech alums company called Mark Set Bot to basically create this drone-like sailboat race course marker. And what that does is it basically replaces the need for somebody to be out there in a rowboat, setting a buoy and an anchor at the start and finish of the sail race course. And this technology is now looking like it may be used at the next U.S. Olympics for sailing. So that's just one example of how I've been able to connect the technology to a freshwater problem. But at the Great Lakes Research, we got a poll question first. So we'll do that. Lake Superior is known for big fish. And I think in some of the pictures you've seen lake trout, pike, brown trout, and coaster brook trout. This picture here is of a lake trout that was caught at Standard Rock. And in 1997, the state record lake trout was caught, rumor has it, at Standard Rock, and it weighed how many pounds?
Wow.
Seeing some good guesses here.
I know. I want to guess that that you would still be able to lift this thing. So,
It was a three-man team lift, if that helps.
oh boy. Well, and when you catch the really big ones, don't you generally put them back in?
That's right. So yeah, one really neat thing about lake trout is that they are a member of the char family. They grow extremely slow and they live a long life. So they grow less than a pound a year. So that's correct. The record of 61.5 pounds, and that fish was, probably or potentially at least 60 years old.
Wow.
Did that really clean, pristine environment out in the middle of Lake Superior to have that kind of lifespan and potential.
Well, and they're just swimming around eating the smaller fish, I guess, right? Is it?
Right. Yeah. They're the apex predator of Lake Superior.
Well,
Cool.
and they keep breeding, right? Don't they?
Oh, right. Absolutely. Yeah. They lake trout can reproduce many times. They don't die after they reproduce. And it takes them a while to reach maturity. So on average, lake trout's about 6 or 7 years old when they reach maturity. So prior to that point, they're not contributing, but after that point, they're very important. So a lot of the fishermen, myself included, like to kind of put the big ones back so that we can eat the smaller ones and let the bigger ones keep on going.
Yeah.
Awesome. So with that, I'm going to segue a little over to some of the work we're doing at the Great Lakes Research Center. And the first topic is that of marine autonomy research. And I think, in Andrew's talk, we've already heard some examples and seen some images of things that we are doing with autonomous assets on the Great Lakes, whether it's for fisheries research, studying the lake bottom, mapping. We had a project where we were using an underwater vehicle to identify invasive species around Gobi and count them, so that that can inform management to sort of make decisions on how to best address the invasive species challenges. But also we use them to look at the water, water quality, take measurements, collect samples, and look at how the lake is changing over time. And, one of the things we say a lot, when we're talking about autonomy is that it's very well suited to three sort of categories of applications. That's dull, dangerous, and dirty. And I'd like to give an example of the dull application, which is that of lake bed mapping. Lake bed mapping, basically we call it surveying, entails getting a boat with a sonar system and essentially doing a pattern across many miles of the lake that we call mowing the grass, where the boat goes north to south and works its way along a survey area. And this is very repetitive work. There's not a lot of engagement. You just have to basically drive this boat and collect data. And the result is compiling that data and creating a map of the lake bottom that's very detailed. And that map can be used to, look at water level changes or to study, special habitats for fish or, things of that nature. This is a very dull task for a captain. Most captains like to be driving the boat from, somewhere interesting to somewhere else interesting, not just mowing the grass. So what we're doing at GLRC is we're working on building an autonomous jet ski. So you can see on the picture in the top left and bottom right, this is an 11-foot Yamaha Wave Runner, and we're in the process of adding an autonomy package onto this, which is basically a set of sensors. So we get GPS, compass, an inertial sensor, and then we're also adding in, remotely controlled actuators that can control the throttle and the steering, so that we can operate this vessel, while standing on a dock or maybe on another boat. And we can remotely control it and also program it to mow the grass for us. So I think everybody would like the programmable lawnmower. So we're working on that technology right now. And one of the applications we're very excited about is helping to map the bottom of Lake Superior. At this time, over 95% of the Great Lakes bottom is uncharted to the current hydrographic survey standards. So that means that the vast majority of the lakes are not, clearly documented with enough detail. And also things change. So the initial surveys of the lakes happened, hundreds of years ago. And between that time and now, there's been erosion and, deposition and the lake is constantly changing. So this tool is something that can help collect that data and also over time look for those changes. So that's one really neat project. But in addition, just the category of smart and autonomous shipping brings to bear a lot of really neat technologies that are, new cutting edge things. In general, the technologies that we get to work with, they are smarter, cleaner, and more efficient. And one of the areas of growing concern is that, looking at our world trade, over 90% of that is carried by sea. And by 2050, it's projected that there will be 3 times the demand for shipping as there is currently. So this creates a very, growing area of concern with emissions and, the fossil fuel consumption. So one of the things that with some of the new technologies emerging, we're seeing are different types of propulsion, but also just increases in the logistical efficiency. And we call that smart shipping that help to, minimize the amount of time vessels are sitting idling, or to help them slow down when they're going from point A to point B when they don't need to be there at a certain time. So they just get there and they end up waiting. So some of that technology can help them optimize their path to burn less fuel, to create less emissions and so forth. So at GLRC, we partnered with the state of Michigan to create a marine autonomy research site where we can test some of these new technologies. And we're actively looking for projects that fall within the category of marine autonomy, where we can help to play a part in bringing some of these new technologies to bear. And then, of course, I wanted to throw a slide in here just to kind of highlight some of the diversity of projects that we work on, and some in particular that I found especially fun and interesting. Right now, I'm helping to manage a project for DARPA, which is a government organization that invests in new technologies. And the project is called Bioprotein. What we're essentially trying to solve is the problem of turning waste plastics, such as the wrappers from a MRE or a meal ready to eat out in the field, turning that into something useful instead of just leaving that behind in the environment. So we're working to develop a little unit that can basically take that MRE wrapper and turn it into a protein powder or a fuel or a lubricant or something useful. And ultimately the goal of this project, or the technology, would be that in addition to being used for military applications, it can be commercialized, and maybe one day you have this unit sitting on your counter and you can turn your plastic bottle into dog food or something. I don't know, we'll see where it goes. So that one's really cool. I've also gotten to do a lot of fun trips on Lake Superior with our research vessel, the Agassiz and the Osprey. One of my favorite trips at any point is going out to Standard Rock, not only because I'm looking for that record lake trout, but also because there's some very interesting geology happening out there. So I took a group of researchers from the university here out to collect a core sample on the rock you can see in the top right corner. So that is the Standard Rock, and that's potentially the smallest island in the largest lake in the Great Lakes here. And we had to figure out a way to basically get those folks safely onto that rock from our vessel. So we've got a little skiff there that they rowed out, and they collected their samples. And that was on a beautiful sunny September day, but we were working within a very short weather window. So we were 40 miles from where we launched the boat to there, and we had to get back before that wind picked up. So it's kind of an exciting trip. The whole time you're just waiting for the wind to start blowing and thinking about it. But you can see on the bottom left, that's a spotter buoy that we deployed out there this summer. And what that's doing is it's actually measuring the wave height and the wind speed in real time. And that's streaming to a public website where anybody, fishermen and boaters can go and look at that data and help them plan their boating trips. So that the buoys is the last program I'll mention, and that's something that Great Lakes Research Center has been very active in helping the state of Michigan and our partners around the Great Lake to deploy and maintain these buoys to collect some really great meteorological information, but also to provide that information in real time to the public users who would be commercial shippers who are planning their route across Lake Superior, or fishermen like me who are looking for where the colder water is so we can find the salmon in the middle of the summer. There's a lot of uses for it. And we get, thousands and thousands of clicks on these buoys all summer long, accessing that data. And then on the bottom right is a picture of us collecting one of those buoys off of Rabbit Island last October, when it decided at the very last day to take a swim on its own. The mooring rope broke loose and that buoy drifted away literally the day before we went to get it. And we ended up collecting that in the middle of a snowstorm on Rabbit Island. So that was exciting.
I was just going to ask, is that snow and ice? And I think you answered that.
Yep, that's what we call the end of the boating season there, the bitter end. So, yeah. So I think we had another poll.
Well, wait, I want to go to Standard Rock someday. So next time you go, let me know.
All right, sounds like a plan. We've got one more poll question, and this one pertains to our buoys, actually. So we have these buoys, we call them remote observation tools, and there's a network of them across the Great Lakes. In October of 2017, one of these buoys measured a record wave height on Lake Superior, and this record wave height is estimated to be pretty close to what sunk the Edmund Fitzgerald in 1975. However, these buoys were not on the lake at that time, so the records from the buoys only go back to 1979. And it's looking like folks are guessing correctly on this one.
Well, and the choices are 13 feet, 20 feet, 28 feet, or 29 feet. So it's probably either C or D is what I'm guessing here.
That's right. Yep. Yeah, the correct answer is 28.8 feet. And I'll just add one more fun note is that there was a buoy in Munising and one north of Marquette that both had similar wave heights measured that night. The peak wind was over 75 miles an hour. So that would have been a hurricane force wind. And that was measured out at Standard Rock on the lighthouse. And it's actually believed that probably some of the biggest waves on the lake that night were in between those two buoys. So, this is the biggest measured wave, something that we've collected data to prove, but certainly there's been bigger waves on the lake than that. And I'm sure as these buoys are in the lake now and more of them, we're going to see some really interesting data in the next many years to come.
Well, and that's a very dangerous sounding inland sea.
Absolutely. And then the picture in the background there, for those who can see that, that's a picture from up by Copper Harbor in the location called Devil's Wash Tub. And I was standing back as far away from all that as possible to get that picture, but we had some huge waves crashing during that particular October 24th wind event. And that was a really neat place to watch them. Some of those waves would spray when they hit the rocks, and that water was going right up onto the highway. So
wow.
Amazing.
Wow.
All right. I guess I just a couple closing remarks. I just want to thank everybody for tuning in to join us tonight, and learning more about the fun work we're doing. And it really is fun. It doesn't feel like work a lot of times. And also, it's been an honor to be invited for the World Water Week. And I guess maybe a final food for thought, just in closing, is one of the best ways that everybody can get involved in the Great Lakes and freshwater is by getting out and experiencing them. And for those of us who do it on a regular basis, bringing other people out there and getting them excited, the same way we are, whether it's fishing or kayaking or walking the beaches, sharing that with other people is a great way to get more people that are understanding and care about this resource that we do have, right here in our backyard that's so easy to take for granted. But really, sharing that's a great way to get more people caring about it. So that's why we're sharing it with you guys.
No, thank you, Travis. Thank you, Andrew. And so, I'm wondering if I'm oriented correctly. If I look to the right on this picture, am I looking at the Michigan Tech campus?
Yes.
That's right. Yep.
You look to the right, you look right into your office, Janet.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, no, and that's how close this research facility is. I mean, this is an integral part of campus, and it's down at, of course, the water, and it's a really nice facility. Well, and to plug Michigan Tech research in general, I mean, so these are we are a university that competes, nationally and internationally for contracts and proposals from all kinds of agencies. And so if you have any leads for us that we might be potentially competitors for, you should contact me and let me know, and I'll pass it on. And if you have anything you want researched, same thing, or contact either Andrew or Travis.
Yeah, and I'll follow that up by saying those in industry, we also do a lot of industry sponsored research. So, if there's something that your company doesn't have the capability to do that you need done, that's in the research realm, Michigan Tech almost certainly has someone who can help out in that area.
Very true. Well, and so I want to invite people to ask questions. And so how you ask a question is you type it in the Q&A feature, and we will answer as many questions as we can get to. We've already got 12 open questions. And so while people are adding more questions, I just want to thank everyone again. You have been joining Michigan Tech's College of Engineering Husky Bites. This is a weekly webinar that we've been hosting since the beginning of the pandemic, or kind of close to the beginning of the pandemic. We will be taking the summer off, and we'll start again with a fall season and a spring season. So these are kind of 12 consecutive weekly webinars featuring Michigan Tech faculty and Michigan Tech students and Michigan Tech alumni. And so thanks again, Andrew, and Travis for joining us. And so Travis, and Andrew, please feel free to pick a question here and just read it out aloud, and so that people, know what question you're answering. And I'm just gonna, while you do that, I'll be monitoring and indicating that we're answering it live, and that helps me to keep track of which questions we've answered.
Okay, well, I'll start, then maybe Travis, we can just hand it back and forth. So there's a question here that asks from Matthew saying, how different would the sonar unit on this vessel, I think you're referring to our Ivor 3 autonomous vehicle, how different would that be compared to my Helix 5 fish finder? So it's a really great question. Actually, the technology is very similar. So a typical fish finder might have 1 or 2 or 3 little transducers in it, which limits its accuracy. So a fish finder might be accurate to a really good one, maybe a foot, a mediocre one, maybe 3 feet or so in depth. But the sonar unit on our Ivor 3 actually has centimeter resolution on it. So we can get very, very clear pictures like you saw in the picture of the stamp sands at Buffalo Reef. So really, it's very similar. It just has a lot more sensors in it, which makes it a lot more accurate. And a lot more expensive, of course.
I see a couple of questions that I can jump in on together. So one question was in regards to the state record Lake Trout, which was on display at the Hilltop Restaurant and Lodge. It still is, actually, if anyone's ever been there. You can grab a big cinnamon roll and get a look at a big lake trout at the same time. How long was that lake trout? That fish was 49 inches long, and it had approximately a 36-inch girth. So it was a
well, they end up being hefty little things, don't they?
Very hefty, yeah. They're short and stout. And then another question in regards to smelt dipping and whether or not the lake trout are eating all the smelt. In general, the state of the fishery in Lake Superior is, I think, the Michigan Department of Natural Resources has an index where they assess all the lakes, and Lake Superior is the only one in Michigan, I believe, that is consistently getting an A rating in terms of its, quality compared to its historical, baseline. The fishing is good. The lake trout population is in very good health. Of course, smelt are one of their primary forage, and they definitely eat a lot of smelt. I've caught and cleaned lake trout with upwards of 15 to 20 smelt in the belly of one fish. So they're very hungry fish, but the smelt are quite abundant. They don't always run up the rivers like many people on this may recall or have heard about, but they are still in good numbers, and people ice fish for them up here all winter long. So yeah, great questions.
How do you ice fish for smelt?
So they're not very big. Smelt are like maybe 6 to 8 inch fish, and they have a very small mouth. So typically we use a very tiny jig with a little wax worm. And a lot of times we'll put 2 or 3 of the jigs on the same line, and you drop it into the school of smelt. The other thing we do that's kind of neat is we ice fish for them at night, because that's when a lot of the plankton and the bloodworms come active, and the plankton start to move up the water column after it gets dark. And the smelt are feeding on zooplankton, and that we target them at night by putting a smelt light under the ice, which is just a bright light that attracts the plankton. So it creates a little feeding buffet right under your hole for all the smelt to congregate.
That's fascinating.
So Michael asked a question about, are there any solar assisted ships in use, or any progress on high-tech solar sails for commercial ships? In terms of solar, we use solar a lot on the water, but generally not for propulsion. As you can imagine, it takes a lot of energy to move a vessel through the water, because you're displacing that water as you move the vessel. So it's a lot harder to, it takes a lot more energy to move a vessel in the water than it does to move a vehicle on land in general. So we use other things. There are passive systems out there. Mostly they use wave power. So we actually own a autonomous wave glider that runs only on the power of waves. And as the waves go up, a little surfboard goes up, and there's some fins underneath that have springs on them. So the waves go up, the fins bend, the waves come down, the fins spring back, and it propels that surfboard forward. So
wow.
We have a autonomous surface wave glider that's on loan to us from the NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. That vehicle went from Seattle to the equator and back, all on the power of waves. But to answer the solar question, it's also outfit with solar cells, because the solar powers all of the data acquisition and sensors. So we use solar a lot for powering sensors on the water. All of our buoys are powered by solar. It's just not as effective for propulsion mechanism.
I could maybe add a little bit to that. I know on the commercial shipping side of that, a lot of the shipping industry as a whole is really actively seeking new solutions for propulsion and alternatives to the current fuel, fossil fuels. And one thing that is really important is that the service life of a ship is upwards of 30 to 50 years. So the time to implement the new solutions for the ships that will be meeting the 2050 emissions requirements is really right now. So right now we have to have new solutions for the ships that are going to be on the water 30 years from now or more. So electric is actually something that they are looking at for some of the larger ships that are operating shorter transits, for example, in Europe. There's also liquefied natural gas, but there's really a huge need right now to explore many different alternatives, and the applications for the different ships will kind of dictate what solutions will be viable. If they have to cross the ocean, they need a lot more energy than if they have to, cross from, say, Duluth to Sault Ste. Marie.
Well, I'm going to read off a student-centric question about undergraduate research. And so the question is, do undergraduate students have a chance to work or do projects at the Great Lakes Research Center? If so, are there any particular majors that are the best fit for working there and doing the type of work that you do?
Yeah, so the answer to that is absolutely. We have several undergraduate students that are working for us right now. We hire interns, so we have some undergrads that work 5 to 10 hours a week on very different types of projects. We have other undergraduate students that work with our researchers on specific research projects. So definitely, if you're interested, you can contact me or any researcher that's affiliated with the Great Lakes Research Center. Travis, I'm sure, would be happy to help as well. But we'd love to have undergraduates involved in the research. And what type of majors? Well, really, we're looking for someone with interest and who loves the maritime environment. So if you've got that interest and that passion, as long as you're willing to learn, we can teach you. And the Great Lakes Research Center is a very multidisciplinary place. So there are very few departments on campus that don't have at least one faculty member doing research in the Great Lakes Research Center. So we can pretty much find a spot for anyone.
All right. Have you ever seen the Northern Lights while out on Lake Superior, Travis?
Yeah, I unfortunately missed them this weekend. I guess they were fantastic. But probably the coolest two places I've ever seen the Northern Lights were Isle Royal during a camping trip, and actually at Standard Rock during an overnight fishing trip. So it was pretty amazing. There was definitely no light pollution out there.
I'm leaving it up to the Fisher people to pick a question.
Well, I'll pick one. So here's a fun fact one. What's the relative volume of Lake Superior compared to the other Great Lakes? So we talked about surface area, depth. The volume is someone probably has a more clear answer than this, but it's roughly the same size as all the other lakes combined. So in terms of number of gallons in all of the Great Lakes, there's about 6 quadrillion gallons of fresh water, and there's about 3 quadrillion gallons in Lake Superior, which I can't even really imagine that number. It's too big to think about.
Well, and to bring us back to Michigan Tech, which is, and I somebody do it right? Am I doing it right? Or am I doing it wrong? Is this? So Lake Superior completely surrounds.
This.
Yeah, you do it. So Lake Superior, keep it up, surrounds Andrew's thumb. I mean, it's
Right here.
completely surrounding, and Michigan Tech is in the middle of his thumb. I mean, just to give you a gross, crude idea of where we are, and I guess what spectacular majesty we're surrounded by. It's hard to even describe Lake Superior, to be quite honest.
It really is. I call it the ocean. It is an inland sea. In fact, it is congressionally designated as an ocean. All of the Great Lakes are, and that's on purpose so that NOAA can operate their ships here. So I call us the congressionally mandated inland ocean. And when you're standing on the shore, there's no difference. It looks like the ocean.
It's beautiful. So John asks, what percentage of the lake trout in Lake Superior are native lake trout?
I don't know an exact answer to that, but I want to say it's 100% or very close to it. There's been very little lake trout stocking. Lake trout had a rough time from about the 1960s, a little bit before and a little bit after. There was a couple issues that came into the Great Lakes. One was an invasive species with the lamprey, sea lamprey, and that really took a toll on the trout population because they feed on the trout, and the trout are wounded sometimes to the point where they expire. And then also there was an active commercial fishery at that same time, and between the fishing and the sea lamprey, that the population of trout couldn't keep up, and they ended up collapsing, to not an extinction level, but to a very, reduced stock. And at that point, the fisheries were kind of paused, and there were some efforts to kind of stock and rehabilitate trout populations throughout the Great Lakes, not just Lake Superior. But I don't believe there's been really any lake trout stocking in the past couple of decades, at least in Lake Superior. And I would say the majority of the fish we catch are very true to the native strains.
Well, and how did the lamprey problem go away?
Oh, that's a great question. There's a really interesting book, The Life and Death of the Great Lakes, that has several chapters explaining that particular experiment and how they address the sea lamprey. But ultimately, there was a chemical design called the lampricide that specifically targeted juvenile sea lamprey in the river environments where they were spawned. So sea lamprey live out in the lake and eat fish, and then they swim into a river and lay their eggs in the riverbed. And that's the one point in their life cycle where they're somewhat consolidated, I guess, concentrated. And the lampricide was designed so that it could poison the sea lamprey, the small ones in the river, and at the same time not completely decimate the trout and other fish that lived in the river. So they still to this day treat the rivers where the lamprey use for spawning with lampricides. and they kind of rotate. They have all the rivers on a list, and they rotate through those. Every year or two, a river will get treated to kill the juvenile lampreys, and that helps. It's helped a lot to keep that population of sea lamprey very stable, probably for the last decade or more. So, but still,
Wow.
some of those big old lake trout we catch have been out in the lake for 50 years or more, and a lot of them have the lamprey marks on them where they were, latched onto a long time ago, and they have these big scars on their side that are evidence of the sea lamprey that were targeting them.
Well, and they rubbed them off or something?
Right. Yeah. So they're the lucky ones that were able to brush the lampreys off, or that didn't die when the lamprey was full.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
All right, Andrew, pick a question.
Yeah, there's a fun acoustics question here, if you don't mind. Chelsea asks, are there any effects from increased noise on aquatic organisms in the Great Lakes, whether from large ships or sonar surveys? It seems to be getting more attention regarding the use of naval sonar and its impact on whales. And would this translate to our lakes and use of sonar here as well? So that's a great question. Noise in the oceans has been tracked for decades, really starting around World War II, when the use of submarines became very important. We started paying a lot of attention to the noise in the ocean, because that's how you find the other guy when you're in a submarine. So we have historical data for some 70 plus years, almost 80 years in the oceans, and you can actually see an increase in noise levels from then to now. That's a steady increase in noise as shipping populations go up, oil and gas research and excavation, naval sonars, other things you can watch that go up. And that's a concern for marine mammal populations, because marine mammals rely on acoustics for communication, and which they use both in collaborative feeding and also in mating. So whales can call in the ocean for hundreds or thousands of miles to find their mates. And they do that by diving to certain depths where the sound travels really efficiently. So it's a huge issue in the ocean for marine mammals. In the Great Lakes, we don't have marine mammals. So a lot less effort has been put into fish. And I'm not sure why that is on the biology side. There's been a lot of effort into acoustics on marine mammals and less into fish, although in the last 15 years or so, there's been a lot more effort being put into how acoustics affects fish. There's still a lot there we don't know. Fish do sense sound, but they sense sound differently than we do and than marine mammals do. Marine mammals have ears sort of similar to ours. They sense the pressure. So that sort of the condensation and relaxation of the water as the pressure wave moves over them is how our ears work. But fish actually sense the velocity of the water particles. They sense the motion of the particles, not the pressure. So it's a little bit different sensing mechanism that they have, and that leads to a lot of questions about the levels and the frequencies and other things that could be detrimental to fish. So to answer your question, there are folks starting to look at this, but we're way behind what's being done in the ocean just because it hasn't been going on for nearly as long. And that's one of the things we hope to learn with this USGS survey this summer is does that noise from the ship bother the fish at all? If it bothers the fish, the hypothesis would be the fish would leave the area and the fish counts would be low. But if the fish counts from the quiet vessel and from the loud vessel are exactly the same, we might have a different hypothesis that maybe the fish don't care as much about that transient sound of a ship. But there's a lot of work to do there, and it's a very interesting topic.
No, it was very interesting. Well, and I'm noticing if anyone wants to see how clear the portage is, just click on John Soring's link. I think you guys can see it, right? Can the audience see it? I'll hit answer live because that way maybe people can follow the link. But I followed the link, and yeah, no, the portage is pretty clear of ice at this point. And it happened really fast. And then, so Jerry Goodwin has a question on the autonomous jet ski. Travis, how far down in depth can the sensors see?
right now we're specking out a multi-beam sonar. So that's a more sophisticated sonar than what we probably use on most of our fishing boats. But the big difference is that instead of sending one sound beam down and getting a single reading back, it sends an array of beams, and it can collect, depths, left and right of the vessel in what we call a swath, so a wide area, and it collects multiple measurements simultaneously. And that system that we're specking out is capable at up to about 200 meters. So it will cover all of the nearshore zones of Lake Superior, and also quite a bit of the, the offshore areas that are, up to about 600 or 700 feet.
Well, and we've got a couple of stray but interesting questions. So when do the buoys go back in, and what's your favorite beach? So I think we should hear from both of you about the beach.
So the buoys go in usually in like mid-May, although this year it might be a little bit earlier because the ice is leaving earlier this year than normal. So we're actually targeting our first deployment hopefully in mid-April in the Straits. So the Straits buoy will be the first one that goes back out. In terms of the beach, my favorite beach up here is Bay de Gris. I love Bay de Gris Beach. It's miles and miles of white sand, and there's almost no one ever there except you and the black flies.
Yeah, I would second that. That's definitely, in terms of white sandy beaches, that would be my favorite. But I like rocky beaches as well. Probably my favorite stretch of beach or shoreline on the Keweenaw is right at the tip at High Rock. I also like Keystone. It's another nice sandy beach, but High Rock, in terms of the rocky beach, is just very rugged. And if you like agates, you can see some really cool agates up there stuck into the conglomerate.
Oh, wait, say it again. Where do we go to see this?
Yeah,
High
Rock Bay, they call it. Yeah.
All right, that's on my list now.
It's off the
High
beaten
Rock.
path. You need a four-wheel drive vehicle to get out there. Well, you don't have to, but I highly recommend it.
Yeah, or a bicycle. Yeah.
Yeah, or a bike. Yep.
Yep.
Okay, good. Andrew, go ahead and pick a question.
Sure.
We've still got, we've answered 19 questions with 13 open questions. So this is why for Husky Bites, we call a hard halt at 7:15. So, but we still have 83 people fascinated by this subject. So
yeah, that's great. So there's a question on, Glenn Archer asked, does the designation of an ocean mean that parts of Lake Superior are considered international waters? So actually it doesn't. So the way it works on the coast is you have an exclusive economic zone around the coast, and then when you go beyond that, you're in international waters. The lakes are 100% exclusive economic zone. So you go directly from US waters to Canadian waters in the middle of the lakes. So if you look at Google Maps, you'll see a line through the lakes that shows the international boundary, and there's no international waters in between there. You go from one instant being in the US to the next instant being in Canada. So if you're planning on going north on Lake Superior, we always make sure we notify our Canadian counterparts. And if we're doing research, that's okay. We can just notify them as long as we're not going to port in any Canadian ports. But you do need to carry passports and other things like that, because you never know what can happen up there. We generally try to work on our side of the line unless there's a very special circumstance.
Travis, you pick a question.
I see a question about what did the core sample of standard rock reveal? That one was really interesting. If anyone's familiar with Bay de Gris, it's up at the north of the Keweenaw. In fact, the picture behind me in the background of my Zoom is a NASA satellite image of Lake Superior. And if you pretty well look at the very tip of the Keweenaw where the clouds are hanging out, that's Bay de Gris. And the geologist.
Wait. Try to point to it. Try to point to it.
Let me.
Yeah. There you go.
Right there. That's Bay de Gris.
Okay.
So it's a big notch in the Keweenaw, and it's kind of nice because that notch creates a sheltered bay from three sides. So unless it's an east wind, that bay is just beautiful. It's not rough water, so we like to go out and fish there a lot. But there's a really big rock bluff called Bear Bluff that sticks up like, I think it's maybe close to 800 feet over Lake Superior. And it's sort of like this volcanic rock formation, which Lake Superior was actually volcanically formed. So a lot of the rock here in this area is over 1 billion years old. Some of these exposed rock bluffs, and Bear Bluff is part of what they call the Mid-Continental Rift system. And the geologists, led by Professor Jim DeGraff here at Michigan Tech, were interested in finding out if the rock at Standard Rock is part of this same Mid-Continental Rift, or the Keweenaw Fault, I believe is another reference to that rift. And by taking the core samples out there, they were able to match the core specimen to the Bear Bluff type of rock on the mainland here. So they believe that that's all the same formation going across Lake Superior. And interestingly enough, there was never a previous geological record of the rock at Standard Rock, not even from when they built or surveyed the site for the lighthouse in the late 1800s. Supposedly there was one rock specimen of some sort that a fisherman had caught, and they turned it in to the geologist as a specimen from Standard Rock. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that rock was the actual rock at Standard Rock, so that was not considered a proper geological specimen. That rock could have been in someone's tackle box or dropped off by a freighter. We don't know.
Mhm.
So that was
All
pretty
right.
neat.
So I have a question, because I think this is the right audience to ask my question to. So Lake Superior is still at a pretty all-time high, or at least a local high relative to height, right? So so in your experience, Travis, with all of your thousands of hours out there, a lot more of the rock would normally be visible.
Yeah, that's right. So right now with the high water, there's a lot of rock that's underwater. And there's a lot of places you can drive a boat right now that 10 or 20 years ago would have been a beach or a rocky shoreline. Yeah, it's quite a bit. The right now the record high water we have is several feet higher than the long-term average. But compared to the long-term lows that we saw not too long ago, that could be a difference of 5 or 6 feet in some places.
And what are people predicting to be the outcome as a result of this sort of light year of snow and lots of evaporation of the lake? What do you know what they're predicting?
Yeah, so far the forecast is showing Lake Superior just kind of continuing to gradually decline. So I think we're down about 6 or 8 inches below the record high we had last year. And I think they're expecting that trend to continue, but not at a rapid rate, just kind of a gradual decline.
I'm happy to hear that, honestly. I would like a little bit more,
Right.
a little bit more space between our camp, and the and the water.
Right. Yeah. Well, less water means less places for the fish to hide, so we'll find them a little easier.
Well, so this is a question to both of you. You're both mechanical engineers. How did you each choose your, mechanical engineering as your major? What inspired you to pick that major? I mean, and let alone to become an engineer.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was a combination of growing up fixing things and just learning how different mechanical systems worked. And Legos. I mean, I loved Legos. I still love Legos. In fact, in my office in the Great Lakes Research Center, I've got a Lego ship in a bottle. So, just putting things together, taking things apart, it really spoke to me. So it got me into mechanical engineering.
How about you, Travis?
Yeah, it's similar for me. I was a tinkerer ever since I was a kid, and pulling things apart and trying to put them back together. In high school, I was able to do robotics as a extracurricular, and that was just really fun. We got to build these robots that played games and solved problems, and that was my first impression of what engineering was. So I went to tech and took a couple visits and did some of the summer youth programs and such, and learned more about it. And what I learned is that engineering in general is very broad. There's a lot of disciplines, but when I picked mechanical engineering, I viewed that as a very broad discipline that meant there's a lot of things you could do with it in terms of applying it to various work. So I wasn't 100% sure what I wanted to do, but I knew that it was going to be a good starting point. and would open up a lot of opportunities later. So that worked out true to the plan.
Well, just as an aside, one of the things that is certainly true is that, economies kind of do sort of a wavy motion, kind of like the water theme today, and having a more standardly named degree tends to be an advantage in a declining economy, because, say, for example, aerospace engineering and mechanical engineering, these are very similar skill sets, and lots of mechanical engineers can work in the aerospace industry. On the other hand, aerospace engineering majors can't easily work in other sectors. And so it's whenever someone asks me, should I major in this or that, I kind of think that having the broader base and then specializing within your broader base is a good way to go, right? And so and to just kind of elaborate a little more on that, if our mechanical engineering program here at Michigan Tech has a very strong aerospace component to it, and the aerospace enterprise and all kinds of things. And so you can see that in mechanical engineering, you can also have a kind of naval acoustics angle, right? These are very, it's a broad degree, but not.
In fact, we have a naval systems minor.
Well, no, that's true. No, well, and so this is not an easy major by any means. I mean, this is like like a rigorous, deep major with some strong foundations. But with those foundations, you can have your path. Like Andrew mentioned, his path was into acoustics, and it's kind of interesting how your path, Travis, was into naval systems and sensors and remote vehicles and robotics. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I agree with you. It worked out very, very good for me, my personal journey, starting out broad like that and then narrowing in, because you can always go back to that broad base. So I think that's good insight.
All right, why don't you guys pick another question or two, and we're coming up on, and then probably we'll start closing down. So one question each.
Go ahead, Travis.
Oh boy, I'm scrolling through them here. If you've got one, go for it.
We've done good. We've answered 24 questions live. We've 8 opens.
I'll answer Chelsea's question. Have studies been done about leaching of metals from the stamp sands that's encroaching on the spawning grounds on fry? The answer is yes, and that is ongoing work. So we actually have a fish toxicologist here at Michigan Tech in the biological sciences department who works at the Great Lakes Research Center and does a lot of work in that area. So that's a very important.
What's their name?
That's Gord Patterson.
Okay.
So that's a very important thing to understand. And Gord works very closely with folks in civil and environmental engineering, so in biological sciences, works closely with Charlie Kerfoot, who does a lot of work on the stamp sands, and then Noel Urban in civil and environmental engineering, who also does a lot of work on stamp sand migration. So it's really a team effort to answer that kind of problem, because you need folks that are experts in sand toxicology, that are experts in hydrodynamics, and that are experts in fish. So it's a nice team effort, and that's exactly what the Great Lakes Research Center intends to do, is to put those multidisciplinary teams together to answer the really important and pressing problems on the Great Lakes.
All right, and I'm going to jump in and ask one more. I'm going to read another question because I really want to know the answer to this. Darwin asks, can we track invasive species using remote sensors?
Andrew, do you want to take a stab at that one?
Sure. So I think the answer is yes, we can. Are we doing it with all invasive species? No. So there's a couple different ways we can do that. When folks think of invasive species in the Great Lakes, we often think of animals. There's also a lot of invasive plant species. Mm-hmm. Eurasian water milfoil is one of the big ones. And we actually use remote sensing with our IVR 3 to fly through different fields of Eurasian water milfoil and watch how it changes from year to year to see if that's spreading. Because we can get an acoustic picture of these fields of underwater algae growing. The other thing that we do a lot of in the Great Lakes is fish tagging. So we have acoustic fish tags, and this is often done by the DNR. So they can track the movements of fish. So they put transponders at different locations. They actually, this winter, had a transponder on our dock at the GLRC that was tracking fish under the ice. And it's like a little RFID tag, like you have in your credit card. And when the fish swims by it, it just clicks that fish swam by it. So you can use technology like that to track invasives as well, but you have to physically tag them. Usually if we catch them, we don't put them back in the water. So it's a challenging problem for sure. In terms of in Lake Michigan, the biggest problem with invasives is mussels. So quagga mussels and zebra mussels, and those can pretty easily be monitored and tracked using sonar systems. So you have multi-beam sonar systems. You can see the change in the bottom where those things live.
All right, Travis, one more question from you, and then I'm going to say a few closing remarks and then give each of you a chance to have closing remarks.
Sure, that sounds good. There's a question from Michael about the introduction of coho salmon and splake relative to alewives that came through the St. Lawrence Seaway, as well as when the lampreys came in. So this is a really interesting question because it talks about invasive species that found their way in through ship ballast water, in unintentional ways. So that'd be the sea lamprey, the mussels, the alewives. But it also addresses intentionally introduced sort of invasive species, non-native species, which would be the coho salmon, for example. And this is an interesting example of sort of an engineered solution to the alewives, which were a problem on the Great Lakes. Back in the 80s, they really were peaking in population. So if you flew across Lake Michigan and looked down, you would see these massive schools of fish that stretched for miles and miles. And when the temperatures got cold, these fish would die because they need a little bit warmer water than what the Great Lakes always offer. And they would wash up on the beaches, and they would create this massive pile of dead and rotting fish, which nobody really liked. So there was a problem, and they needed a solution to try to get rid of these. And there was a fisheries biologist named Howard Tanner who just kind of got involved with Michigan Department of Natural Resources at that time and had this idea based on some of his prior studies with fisheries that perhaps they could introduce a new species of predator fish. And they looked at striped bass as one option, but they needed warmer water. And then coho salmon, which were actually well suited to the water temperatures of the Great Lakes, as sort of an introduced predator that could eat the alewives and also create a lot of economic value through a sport fishing opportunity. And those coho salmon that were introduced absolutely took off. They created, a multi-billion-dollar sport fishing industry that is still, thriving today. But they also very effectively reduced the alewife population. So coho are not native, but they're technically, a solution to that problem.
All right, I've just Googled alewife, and that's a new word for me. The alewife is an anadromous species of herring found in North America. So it's a small fish.
So going back to my opening slide of growing up working at my grandparents' resort, I used to clean up alewife on the beach there sometimes. That's a gross job. They don't have that problem anymore. So.
Oh, fascinating. There's still 6 questions. I'm sorry we're not going to get to all of them, but I just want to thank everyone this evening for joining us. You have been listening to a webinar sponsored by Michigan Technological University, located in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Show us, Andrew. And you have been listening to, this is World Water Day. We've been listening to Travis White and Andrew Barnard, and learning a great deal from their experience and understanding of Lake Superior and their fish, her fish. All right, so Travis, some closing remarks, and then we'll close it with you, Andrew.
Sure. Well, thank you, Dean Callahan, for having us. And I guess it was just a privilege to be able to talk about some of these things that we're very passionate about. And, for those listening, I would really just encourage everybody to go out and bring somebody else out and introduce them to something new on the Great Lakes. We'd like to see more people out there, recreating, whether it's fishing, kayaking, or walking the beaches, because really the people that are caring are the people that are going to protect this resource for many generations to come. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you, Janet, for having us. This has been wonderful, and we had upwards of 110 people I saw. That's tremendous. So lots of interest in the Great Lakes and autonomy and engineering. That's great. If anyone is interested in other things that we do at the Great Lakes Research Center, feel free to look us up, mtu.edu/Great Lakes. It's an easy one to remember. And if there's any questions or people thinking about research collaborations, feel free to get a hold of me through the Great Lakes Research Center webpage, and I'd be more than happy to talk with you. This has been terrific, and thanks again for the opportunity.
My honor and pleasure. Thank you so much, everyone, and good evening. Happy spring.